I am really nervous to make this video, but I think it's still important because it's about Kosovo. What you're going to see in this video is the best things to see in Pristina and Prizren. But before I get the video started, I kind of wanted to jump in and just do a little bit of commentary because I wasn't able to do that while I was there. We had hired a guide to do a day trip from Skopje into Pristina and Prizren because the rental car that we had, we couldn't bring it across the border because Kosovo is not recognized by every country and it's still, how do you say, it's very disputed. So, but because I live in the United States and the US does recognize it as a country, that's what we're gonna go with for now. That's not the point of this video though. The point is that when I make videos, I do a ton of research and I'm talking months in advance. I've read books about places, like when I made my videos on Croatia, I read several history books about it. I've watched every single video, every article, I did it all. So, and it was the same thing with Kosovo, except a lot of the videos that I was seeing, a lot of the articles I was seeing just kind of made it out to be this one giant disappointment as far as going and visiting and there really not being anything to see. I wasn't in the best mood, and to be honest, I really didn't want to go see Kosovo because it looked so Americanized, and it really is. But it doesn't mean that they don't have a history. The history of this place goes back like to 8th and 9th century, and there's so many, different people that moved through this area, and so many different powers that came in and out of the area. It still has that today. So it's been a very sought after and disputed area for a very long time. If you want to check out culturetrekking.com, I do have an article on a bit of the history of Kosovo and the people, the places, the wars, and everything that have moved through there. So I won't belabor this video with that. So when we arrived in Kosovo and met our guide, I tried to say to myself, okay, have an open mind. Your whole YouTube and website is about pushing those internal boundaries and kind of opening yourself up to see the world a little differently than maybe you have before. So we got in the car. Our driver did not say a word. I don't know if that was cultural or what, or if he was just shy. He was really good looking though. So that kind of made it a little better. We drove out to Pristina, we met our guide there, and then he took us around, and he has a degree in history, and I asked him if I could videotape him, and he's like, no. So I was like, okay, well, to each his own, and it was a little frustrating, but I was like, privilege, Janelle, forget your privilege. You gotta just, some people don't like being videotaped, and you need to respect that. So behind me here, you see this setup called Newborn, and every year it changes. This year there are women on it, and it's a winged woman. You can stand in front of the wings, but it's supposed to represent like the beginning of a new country, which they're one of the youngest countries in the world. I just kind of stayed a little bit further back and kind of videotaped some of the stuff that I knew would be points of interest, and then tried to engage in the conversation a little bit, and he got a little bit frustrated with me because I wasn't really listening to him. I also did not feel good, so it was, ladies, you know why I probably didn't feel good that day. So all of this was going on, and I was just like, yeah, this is exactly what I thought it would be. It's really, not much to see, and everything was destroyed, and they're trying to rebuild it, and that's great. And there was a lot of American stores, but there were also a lot of stores that celebrated the culture of Kosovo. They have a lot of statues for politicians. They have a lot of things celebrating being able to get their independence because America helped them. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of that because it is quite complicated, and really it's not my place to make a judgment other than to say that I saw a lot of America being celebrated there. They have a statue of Bill Clinton. They have a statue of Madeleine Albright. We went down Mother Teresa Boulevard. This is a 1.5-mile walk that takes you past hotels, restaurants, statues, encouraging kids to read, roasted chestnut, food carts, perfume shops, and secondhand bookstores. It was here on Mother Teresa Boulevard that something hit me. In a country that was 80% Muslim, they named a street after a Catholic saint. There was a palpable peace to this city. It encouraged me to relax a little and open my mind to the possibility of actually liking Pristina. But I wasn't quite there yet. However, if you are here on Mother Teresa Boulevard during Christmas time, they hang lights that when you walk under it, kind of looks like you're walking underneath a Christmas light river. We visited more statues than I can count during this trip, and just coming from Skopje, I was a bit statued out, to be honest. But on returning home and doing some research, I realized just how important these people were to them. Like the statue of Skanderberg near Rugova Square, when Albanian feudal lord and hostage to the Ottoman court, and then became an Ottoman general, turned double agent, who was considered by the Pope to be the head of the Christian crusade in the medieval times against the Ottomans. How cool is that? Or what about the statue of Zahir Paiaziti? It was the first commander of the Kosovo Liberation Army. Or this guy, Ibrahim Rugova. Or the square's named after, who's actually the first president of Kosovo. And even though his dad was killed and his grandfather was killed by the Yugoslav army, he still went ahead and brought the country to peace by peaceful methods. Now, despite all the peace that ensued, there's still a lot of people missing and memorials that pop up like this looking for people who have disappeared. Just a lot of different places that they take a lot of pride in. And then there were also several memorials that were really, really moving of people who are still lost. Thousands of people still haven't been found. That's really sad because it was just 30 years ago, and there are still people alive today that don't know where maybe their dad is or their mom. A lot of people call this the ugliest building in Europe, but I really disagree. It is a complex exterior that keeps the eye moving. To one person, it kind of looks like sort of prison, but to another, it looks like chainmail for protection. This is exactly what art is supposed to do, create conversation and allow for different interpretations. Inside the library, you have artfully designed foyers for art displays, geometric staircases, domes, mosaics, and a play of light and silhouettes throughout. They preserve the ability for locals to learn about the heritage of Kosovo and keep up on world events. While the building is new, there were libraries that existed in Kosovo that dated back to the 14th and 15th century. And just outside was another memorial where white ribbons were tied to trees as a homage to those who were lost in the war and never found. It wasn't just men that suffered, it was also women, which you see in the Herionat statue. So behind me here, you'll see a face of a woman, and it is made out of 20,000 medals that are supposed to represent the sacrifice that the women made here in Kosovo during the war. There was rape, there were camps, there was a lot that happened here. This image was created from a conglomeration of photos from war research, and it's an image of thousands and thousands of women who were victims in the war. From brutal sexual abuse. Right near the Herionat statue, there was a photographic memorial of what it was like during the war in Kosovo, celebrating the people who brought them out of the war and into an independence. So if you want to read more about that, I do have some of that in my article on my website. So behind me here, you'll see this church, and it's closed down. You can't go in. This is an important part of the history of Kosovo, but basically it belonged to the people that were attacking them, the Serbian Orthodox Church, and it was built illegally, but they say they have all the paperwork. It's a real kerfuffle because if they do anything with it, then the Serbian Orthodox Church will consider it an outright act of war. So it just sits here derelict, and nobody really can go in to practice the religion either. If you have a little more time, I suggest going into the Mother Teresa Cathedral. It has some beautiful stained windows as well as pews adorned with eagles' heads and was built in 2005. We also headed over to the Imperial Mosque with a beautiful interior and a staple to the Muslim religion in Kosovo. There are more than 500 mosques in Kosovo, but this is the largest of them all. It was built in the 15th century and it is a complex of 3 buildings, a main hall, gallery, and a surrounding courtyard with a large prayer hall. After kind of going around the town, we stopped at the UNESCO site, the Gracinica Monastery. This is a Serbian Orthodox monastery built by Stefan Mulitin in 1321. You see a double inscribed cross inside with 4 pillars that raise a central dome. There are 4 domes that abut the main dome, giving the outside structure the appearance of a crown. The frescoes show the early life of Jesus and other religious calendars like the festival cycle, the Passion, and miracles of Christ. And then we headed over to Prizren, which you could see the old stone, and it felt a little bit more ancient, and I was like, yeah, this is what I travel for. And welcome to Prizren. The old stone bridge connects the 2 squares on either side of the river. It was built by Ali Bey in the 16th century with carved stones and lime plaster. It was restored in 1982 in the original style after a major flood destroyed the entire bridge. There were also these cute little decorations on the trees that were just hand done and randomly put on there on the trees, and people added to it. The walk by the river was my favorite on the way to the mosque. Just the moss and the rushing river and these houses that kind of look like the ones that you'll see in Burek when we go there. But it was really the feeling of the peacefulness, the calmness, the beauty, the cool weather, and being there with my friends. It really, really made me fall in love with Kosovo. Our guide also said that this tourist train does give you a ride around town. It does cost some euros. You have to pay in cash, but I thought it would be a fun thing to do when you're in the city. My attitude started to change a little bit, and then I kind of was feeling a little guilty about my attitude in the beginning of not being as open-minded as I hoped I would have been when going there. And that's the kind of the double-edged sword with doing research, is because you're viewing someone else's opinion about a place without having visited yet. And that's, I feel like that's the definition of prejudice. Shame on me. We then headed over to Sinan Pasha Mosque. Now, this mosque was built in 1615 and overlooks the main square of Prizren. The mosque walls are 5 feet thick, and it has a lead dome that covers the entire structure. Inside, you'll find beautiful floral motifs and even a watermelon. The mosque has undergone considerable conservation efforts and was used for religious rites up until 1912. And during the Balkan Wars and the First World War, the mosque was used as an ammunition storage by the Bulgarian and Serbian armies. The art of filagree is a delicate lace-like kind of jewelry metalwork made with tiny beads and twisted silver threads. The art was popular in Asia, India, and North Africa, but is rare in modern Europe. Historians say the art of filagree was flourishing here by the 18th century. Kosovo actually once had its own silver mines, but the silver is no longer extracted, and the artisans have to import it and barely covers their costs. We then headed over to the Cathedral of Our Lady of Perpetual Succor. This is actually where Mother Teresa's father and mother were baptized. So it's not open right now, but it was renovated just this last year. And I did learn something by visiting Kosovo, because after sitting down with him and actually having that conversation, it really made me realize that visiting Kosovo isn't just about, finding the prettiest spots or the coolest things to see that would be good for YouTube and to keep people engaged. It's about who they are and what they love and why they believe what they believe and what is the thing that drives them every day. And we sat at that little cafe by the mosque for almost, I would say, an hour and a half. Well, it felt like an hour and a half because the conversation gets so deep. Have you ever had those conversations? And I realized that Kosovo isn't about visiting to see, like I was saying, the pretty sights. But Prizren was really beautiful, to be honest, and I loved that city. Visiting Kosovo is more about the people. And if you just go to cross something off your list and, cross a country off your list and are looking to, I guess really, if we're going to be honest about it, have the bragging rights of saying like, yeah, I've been to that country, then you've missed the whole point of what Kosovo is. That's how I feel anyway. The beauty of Kosovo lies in its people. And if you rush through there and you don't take the time to actually sit down and have a conversation, and even if you can't find, a local to have a conversation with, which, to be honest, they're so friendly. And especially if you're American, they love you and they'll have all kinds of conversations with you. Then you really have missed the whole point of this place. Because I think when you look at countries that are either financially suppressed or emotionally suppressed or politically suppressed, the things that they have to turn to are each other. And until you get into the local culture, you don't realize what a gem this city is of people and survival and courage and kindness. And I think, for me at least, that is what made Kosovo beautiful in the end. And I do feel bad about the attitude I went in with. And I hope that those who watch this video and decide to visit will take some time while they're there to hire locals and sit down with them. Our guide was really great. If you want to hire him, I will leave his information in the description box below, and I will see you guys in the next one. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them below. I would love to keep this conversation going and kind of find out what your thoughts are. If you've ever had an experience like that where you went to a place and were either A, disappointed, or B, started out with a bad attitude because you just heard some really tough things, yeah, just let me know. See you guys next time.